Now, the book histories covers the period when I think five kings ruled over Persia. That's Cyrus the Great, his son Cambyses, Smerdis the impostor, Darius, and Xerxes. So the book covers that period. But as I've mentioned several times in my previous videos, history, Herodotus in his book Histories has this thing of going on tangents. So sometimes you go on a tangent, then go way back in times before, and then tell us about some maybe background, and give us some background information, and then sometimes he go into these tangents where he's telling us giving us information about other kingdoms and things like that. But primarily the book is about the period when these two guys ruled over Persia. Now, how these five kings of Persia were related is a little bit complex or complicated. And in part that is because of the marriage arrangement. Even though Herodotus tells us that Persians, it was not the custom of Persians to marry people they are related with. It happens a lot in this family tree that the sister and brother marry, cousin and cousin. So that creates some complications when you are trying to understand the relationship between these five rulers of Persia during the time that the book is covering. Of course, one of those five is easy to remove them from the list. He was completely not related to these others, and that is Smerdis the impostor. Now, Smerdis the impostor came to power by passing himself to be the son of Cyrus the Great. There was a real Smerdis who was the son of Cyrus the Great, but that real Smerdis was murdered by Cambyses, his own brother, in secret. So the public didn't know that Smerdis was dead. So when this Smerdis the impostor came and passed himself to be the son of Cambyses, the son of Cyrus the Great, it was so easy for the public to believe. I've told you about this before. Now, when you these five or four, without excluding Smerdis the impostor, belong to what is known the Achaemenid dynasty. Now, but they are not the only ones in the Achaemenid dynasty. There are other kings from the same family who ruled Persia, but those ones came after, maybe most likely after Herodotus died, or some of them maybe when he was already done with his book, but most likely he was already dead. Because remember, the Achaemenid dynasty ruled Persia for slightly over 200 years. So Herodotus was already dead by the time these others, the later ones, came to power. Now, anyways, now how was Cyrus, Cambyses, Darius, and Xerxes related? Now, first you have to go through the family tree, the Achaemenid dynasty family tree, to get some picture, to get some basic understanding. Now, their origin was a guy known as Achaemenid, as they are called the Achaemenid dynasty. Achaemenid was not a king. He was an ordinary guy, or there is very little known about him. Besides him being mentioned by these kings as their ancestor, there is nothing else that is known about him. So it's most likely he was just an ordinary guy. And now Achaemenid had one son, Thespis. Thespis, like his father, there is very little known about him. He was not a king. He was not a notable member of society as far as the book is concerned. Besides being mentioned by Darius and Cyrus and Xerxes and Cambyses as their ancestor, there is nothing much known about him. Now, Thespis had two sons. He had Cyrus and Ariamnes. Now, Cyrus is always given the title of Cyrus I to differentiate him with the other Cyruses that happen in the family. Now, Cyrus I was not a king himself also. Ariamnes, his brother, was not a king. They were both not kings. They were sons of Thespis. Now, Cyrus I has one son, Cambyses I. Ariamnes has one son, Arsames. So Cambyses I and Arsames are cousins, and they are great sons of Thespis, and they are great sons of Achaemenid. Now, it is at this level that the family starts getting to get to power at the level of a king. Maybe they were generals or other positions within the government, but it's at the level of Cambyses I and Arsames, the grandsons of Thespis, that there is they get to power. Now, it is during this time that the Persians revolt against the Medes under Cyrus the Great, and it seems like after they had won, Cyrus the Great let Arsames, his uncle, become the king for a short moment. But then Arsames gave up the throne to Cyrus the Great, like very shortly after. He didn't like rule very long. And then now Arsames meanwhile had a son, Hystaspes. Now Hystaspes is a cousin of Cyrus the Great. And these two become very close. And in histories, these two are mentioned a lot. In fact, Cyrus the Great appoints Hystaspes to be a satrap, like a governor of a region. And he also seemed to have consulted him a lot on many issues. So they were basically very close. And then Hystaspes has a son, Darius. Meanwhile, Cyrus has sons, not a son. Of course, both most likely had more sons, but the ones that come to be known. Cyrus has Cambyses and Smerdis. Hystaspes has Darius. Now, Cyrus is basically the first king of Persia. Of course, I've said that Arsames became a king for a very short moment, and then he let Cyrus become the king. When Cyrus dies, his son Cambyses becomes the next king. But Cambyses kills his brother Smerdis because he thought Smerdis was kind of like a threat to his position as the king of Persia. And when he went to Egypt, he sent someone to go back to Susa and kill Smerdis. So Smerdis is murdered. But this is kept a secret. Meanwhile, there's this guy who was the controller of the palace in Susa. He knows about it. He knows that Smerdis had been murdered. And he makes a plan to have his own brother present himself to the Persians to be the Smerdis, brother of Cambyses and son of Cyrus the Great. And he does that and declares himself king. Now, when Cambyses hears about this, he's in Egypt. He decides he wants to come back and face this person, this imposter. He knows this is an imposter because he knows the brother is dead. But he dies on the way. So Smerdis continue ruling Persia for a moment. But then he's discovered by some guys, including Otanis. I've talked about him before, and Darius and some other guys. They form a conspiracy. They conspire, and then they remove him from power. And then Darius tricks the other conspirators and becomes the king. Now Darius is the king. Darius is a nephew of Cyrus the Great because he's the son of Hystaspes, who is the cousin of Cyrus the Great. After Darius becomes king, he marries the daughter of Cyrus the Great. That's Atossa. And then out of that marriage, he has 4 sons. And one of those is Xerxes, who becomes the king. Now, after Darius is dead. Now, Xerxes is the grandson of Cyrus the Great and is the son of Darius. Xerxes, in fact, Xerxes used this to argue that he should be made king because he was not the first son of Darius. There were other sons of Darius with other women, but the argument was that those sons were born before Darius was king. But more importantly, that Xerxes was not only the son of Darius, who was born after Darius had become king, but he was also the grandson of Cyrus the Great. So that's how he became king. So that's the Achaemenid dynasty that appears in histories. As I mentioned before, there are other kings that came after Xerxes. In fact, the kings that are mentioned, the Achaemenid kings that are mentioned in histories by Herodotus, is like half of the family that ruled. There is another half that ruled, but that one ruled, it's outside the book histories.